this Ramadan.
Welcome back. You tuned into Mid Morning Talk with me, your host Mariam Mia, only on Salam Media. And I said today's segment is dedicated to education and our priorities we give in education and what is the current state of education in our country. Lots and lots of speed bumps on the way, but this is a group of educators or parents who are educators as well that I have a lot of respect for, I admire, and I think they are very courageous as well and committed in wanting the best education for their children, but also for an entire community. And that is the home education segment and parents who elect to home educate their children. So there was a circular that came out. I just want to go to my notes here so I get it. The circular S24, and it's how to determine whether curriculums are predominantly comparable with the national curriculum as required by, well, this is S51(2) brackets A brackets 3 of the Bella Act, and how to determine that a standard is not inferior to the standard determined in the national curriculum. But it's a bit of a contentious issue because I think its enforcement or its implementation is very, very vague in terms of what they are saying. And this has been concern for homeschoolers. So I'd like to speak about it with my two guests. And when I think of the two guests here, they for me are leading authorities on home education and also committed to home education in home tutorial centers. So let me welcome first, my first guest is Iselle Linde. Iselle is a homeschooling mother of three with 17 years of experience in the education sector. She holds a BA degree in senior and FET phases, is a SACI registered and accredited assessor through SACA, and she's a member of the Gauteng Joint Liaison Committee on Home Education. Iselle is the founder of Lovey Education, where she provides independent assessment services to the Home Education Committee. Above all, she prioritizes the emotional and academic well-being of each child, ensuring that support, fairness, and accountability remain central to every assessment. And let's welcome her first, and then I'd like to go to my next guest, who for me is a leading authority of home education as well. So, Iselle, do we have Iselle on the line? So,
yes, I'm here.
Iselle, good morning and welcome to Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media.
Oh, thank you for having me here today.
Okay, and then next I have is a good friend, and for me, I can speak accolades about him, but I call him the educational guru when it comes to home education and home tutorial centers and everything in between, because whenever we speak about home tutorial centers or homeschooling advice, information, everything, I call him the home education guru, and that is Mr. Neeresh Badal. Welcome to Mid Morning Talk, Neeresh, and good to connect with you.
Hi, morning, Mariam. Always a pleasure to be on Salam Media. Always a pleasure to chat to you.
Okay, so I was just having this conversation with Dr. Nico Deacon, who is the CEO of FEDUS, and what? In this whole homeschooling, the government making it difficult, more and more rules and regulations are coming and making it infinitely difficult, in terms of registration process, in terms of curriculum, in terms of support system. For parents who elect to homeschool their children, it's that the government does not have capacity, because if every homeschooler had to be absorbed into the schooling system, where are they going to be? Because there's no capacity right now for the kids. There are almost, I think, over 2,000 kids that need to be placed in schools in Gauteng alone. So currently, government does not have the capacity for children who want to go to school to put them in the system, yet they don't look at parents who elect to homeschool as partners in education. Actually, they're supposed to be funding these parents and providing even financial support, because why? You are supporting government, you're supporting society, you are supporting our communities in terms of education where the government has no capacity. So I just find it really, really difficult. Why are they making it so infantily difficult for parents to homeschool their children? So I'm going to give that to you, Neeresh, first, and then I'm going to hand over to Esli.
So, Miriam, in the first instance, I think the numbers are skewed. In terms of registered number of homeschoolers, yeah, there's maybe about 6,000 to 10,000 registered homeschoolers in Gauteng, but more than likely there's over 30 to 40,000 homeschoolers who are not registered in Gauteng province itself. Government is not necessarily making it difficult. The regulations that are there, registration, content outcomes, learning objectives, assessments are all things that have always been part of the South African education system, but in the form of policies. And because parents have ignored the policies, parents have chosen not to follow procedure, now that it's being regulated, people seem to think that Bella Act is bringing in change. But the truth of the matter is that Bella Act is not making what home education parents and homeschoolers are doing illegal. It's the things that parents have been doing that are illegal, and now to make the necessary changes. Parents, they've been doing it for so long that it's become now the kind of norm that they don't see that these are the changes and these are the compliance requirements that they have to do. There's different perspectives. Everyone has their different opinion about Bella Act and what it should be and what it isn't. People say that Bella Act is not the act that the Department of Education officials wanted, and it's also not the act that home education communities wanted. But Bella Act is not only for home education or homeschooling parents. Bella Act largely addresses the South African schooling system and its amendment of the South African Schools Act. And we need to understand that most of the changes in Bella Act affect schools. There's probably just one or two clauses affecting homeschooling parents. So yeah, I don't think the Department of Education is getting everything wrong. I think there is, if you look at what's been happening, how things have been going on, lots of cases of child neglect, children not being educated at home, that the Department of Education as custodians responsible for children and, having the mandate to ensure that every child receives compulsory basic education in South Africa. And remember, the Constitution doesn't say that every South African child must receive compulsory education. It says every child in South Africa must receive compulsory basic education.
Thank you for that. Let me go to Esselina. Esseli, can we focus now on the circular and what is the feeling regarding the circular, and what is the, let's just say that clarity we need in the circular? Because from reports I'm reading that it's not clear what they mean by alignment in terms of the curriculum and that. So what is the cause of concern for homeschooler with the circular that has now been published, I said in November, and now coming to the circular 24, the S24?
Okay, so I think at this stage, yes, there is a lot of concern, but we need to think about it this way. The tension is between the autonomy and the regulation, alternative curricula and CAPS comparability, and the concerns about promotion and progression. Everyone is looking at, listen, is our power being taken away from us? And that should not be the concern. If we can go back just a minute here, you said there, when you asked Neeresh a question about can the Department of Education, do they have the capacity? And yes, they do. There are regulations in place. At this stage, the problem, what they feel, and I think most home educators feel, the parents feel, is power is being taken away from them, and it is not. There are regulations in place. It's just being educated about them. Remember, home education parents can choose the curriculum that they want to follow. And those who choose CAPS, those who choose Cambridge, those who choose the American core curriculum, there are guidelines towards that. And then as well, because remember, this is more about assessment. And we should remember that assessment does have international ways of doing it. You've got your principles of assessment, you've got your cognitive levels, and this is just being educated before you give an opinion. There is so many documents, policies in South Africa that can help you with this, people you can speak to with the right knowledge, with the right expertise in this. And I think at the end of the day, it's more about power being taken away from the parents, and this is not why this circular was given out.
Okay, I'd like to continue this discussion after the break. There's so many questions I have and people sending through. So if you both can please stay on the line, and we'll continue our conversation after the break. Thank you.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Freedom Stationery supply Marlin and Marlin Kids pens to me and my school friends. They supply just about everything we need to help us get a better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Welcome back. You tuned into Mid-Morning Talk with me, your host, Maria Mia, and we're speaking about home education, specifically the S24 circular. And I have with me two guests, Iselle Linde and Neeresh Badal. And Neeresh, what is your thoughts on the S24 circular? And more so, how do authorities ensure that assessors themselves are appropriately qualified and that the evaluation processes are fair and consistent?
So I think Iselle will agree with me, right? In order to understand Circular S24, we need to actually go back and we need to look at what is Bella Act saying. And Bella Act in terms of home education, it recognizes home education as a lawful alternative to school attendance. But it also provides certain regulations, and there is that home education programs that a parent or a learner follows must be suitable for the learner's age, grade level, ability, predominantly cover the acquisition of content and skills that are comparable to our national curriculum statement. Also that, the learner must be assessed by a competent assessor against a standard not inferior to our national curriculum statement. In simple terms, a parent is free to choose the curriculum they prefer, but the academic level and outcomes must not be inferior to the standards determined in our national curriculum. The standard of what is achieved must remain comparable to the curriculum statement. Now, when we also talk about the learning program, remember, Bella Act doesn't say you have to follow a specific curriculum. It refers to a learning program. And a learning program is not randomly teaching a child different things at on different days. Education is not a collection of disconnected activities. It needs to be an intentional process aimed at helping a learner grow intellectually and academically in a structured way. So a learning program is something that needs to provide a framework for what is to be taught and assessed. And within this framework, learning outcomes should specify the knowledge, the skills, and the values that learners are expected to acquire and demonstrate by the end of a program. The learning outcomes is what describes the knowledge, or describes what knowledge, skills, and values learners should know, demonstrate, and be able to do at the end of a program. Learning outcomes are there to ensure that learning progresses logically from one grade to the next, and it integrates concepts and skills across different subjects. When we talk about assessment in this regard, assessment is, and Iselle will explain this as well, it's a process of gathering information and evidence and then evaluating the evidence and making a judgment to determine whether a learner has achieved the intended learning outcomes. It focuses on what a learner can demonstrate as a result of their learning. Assessment is not pass or fail. It's a demonstration of competencies. And in order to be able to determine whether a child is competent or not, in order to be able to evaluate the assessment, an assessor needs to have what is called evaluative expertise. An important part of assessment is how well and to what extent learning outcomes are being achieved. Bella Act does provide a definition of what a competent assessor is for the end of phase assessments. And there is a person who is qualified or trusted to check a learner's work and decide whether or not they meet that standards. And according to Bella Act, the competent assessor is defined as someone professionally qualified and authorized to conduct assessments of learners. And that's very important, that they qualified and authorized to conduct assessments of learners, because a lot of people are under the impression that educational psychologists, remedial psychologists, speech and hearing therapists can make decisions about whether or not a learner can progress from one grade to the next. The Bella Act refers specifically to SACE and EDTP, SACWA accredited registers, assessors. Now, SACWA doesn't accredit assessors. SACWA accredits programs and courses. So in order to complete the SACWA accredited course, you then register with the Education Training SETA, Sector Academy Training Authority. And those are the assessors that would determine or assess or moderate a learner's portfolio of evidence of learning file and make a decision on whether or not a learner is able to progress from one grade to the next. And in most instances, assessors don't just work on pass or fail. They look at giving a learner multiple opportunities, identifying weaknesses, what the learner needs to know, and then giving a learner additional time to complete those actions and reassessing as well. I think, Iselle, you can add to this in terms of, assessment is not just about completing a course or about being SACE registered. There are standards and there are principles that come with assessments. And, there's a lot of parents, educators who are no longer teaching in schools and still hold a SACE registered certificate. And the problem is that with SACE, when they issue a SACE registered certificate, that certificate doesn't have an expiry date on it. But SACE itself does have certain processes that in order for your SACE to remain active or for you to be in good standing, you need to pay your annual membership fee. You need to attend and complete a certain number of CPTD training courses, which is continuous professional teacher development courses. So there are a lot of teachers who have SACE certificates, are not active, have not paid their fees, have not completed CPTD courses, and are claiming to be able to do SACE registered or to be claiming to be able to do assessments. And you know, the validity of those assessments can become questionable as well. I think, you know, Iselle should add into this year as well.
Yes, so that's what. Can I just? That's my question. Then I was going to pose to you from the perspective of homeschooling families. What are the most common challenges when complying with this assessment requirement?
I think at the end of the day, we need to remember that there's a lot of service providers out there, and you need to, as a parent, educate yourself on what is needed. If an assessment is done, it needs, like the Bella Act says, it needs to be comparable. What does that mean? There are so many definitions at this stage going around, but it doesn't mean identical content, and that's something that we need to remember. But and parents, that if they get an assessment, what we call cognitive levels in there. You can't just have multiple choice questions. It can be a portfolio-based assessment. It can be a project. It's tests, exams, practical work. It's videos that we can get to assess this. And it's extremely important that assessor comes in there, and they need to know how to evaluate this, because assessment it's a journey. It's not the end of a subject or the end of an academic year. This is where an assessor can say, okay, listen, I can see there's a gap here, but it will not impede on the next year of learning. With an intervention plan, with a bit of reteaching, this child can continue on. The last thing an assessor wants to do is fail a child, is keep a child back. And this is something that is I'm very passionate about, and I know Neeresh is as well. It's the competency. What do we look for in competency? And that is extremely important. It includes literacy, numeracy, scientific reasoning, critical thinking. And if you get an assessment from an assessor that is just multiple choice questions or just application, you know this assessor does not understand how to comply in giving an assessment that is well developed for the child. In home education, it also means talking to the family, seeing what their learning program is, if they've got a self-curated approach, and that is extremely important. So yes, there are a lot of things that can keep a parent and a child from assessing because they don't know. So speak to people that know what's going on. And if you have an uneasy feeling, stop, find someone else. It is your choice as the parent. And that is what is central to home education, respecting the parent's views and choices and the way the child is learning.
Thanks so much for both of you, the sage advice. I think for me, what I gather is, depending on who you speak to, there's a lot of misinformation, or there's everything we think it's happening. There's a sinister motive, but I think the legislation is there to protect you as parents, to guide you as parents, and to support you as parents. And that's the sense I'm getting from both of you, that this journey is a supportive journey, but not everything that comes out from department in terms of following certain rules and regulations is sinister or to impede you from home education, but it's actually to support you and to understand at the end of the day, when your child reaches adulthood or then has completed the homeschooling journey and has now to enter tertiary education, they are aligned in terms of the competency, as you say, in literacy, in life skills, in numeracy, and that's what the assessor is going to do. And for me, that's a lot of clarity there, because whenever you have this homeschooling debate, it's always there's something sinister about it, but in fact it's not. I think we need homeschooling parents need to start aligning themselves with people like yourself, Neeresh, people like yourselves, who are knowledgeable here, who can guide you, who can even tell you in terms of this is the rules and regulations. And you brought up a very, very important point, Neeresh, in terms of, at the end of the day, the biggest money spender is education. So even if somebody says, I am SECI qualified or I have a SECI registration, that means it may not be up to date. You have to do your research as a parents to say, have you registered this year? Do you have credits for this? And that's why it's important to investigate and do your research. And that is the sense I'm getting from both of you. Neeresh, you can do concluding remarks and then we'll go to Iselle.
Yeah, thanks so much, Miriam. So, just to conclude, Circular S24 is not a new law. It's not an amendment to Bella Act. It's not a new curriculum. It's basically providing implementation guidelines on curriculum and assessment requirements for home education. And it's focusing on 3 key areas: curriculum, comparability. And what it means is it explains that comparable to the national curriculum statement means it's interpreted, or it can be interpreted in 2 dimensions. One is a content-based comparability where topics overlap, the strands that we cover, the subject equivalents, and the other is skills-based comparability: literacy, numeracy, scientific reasoning, critical thinking, problem-solving skills. So, it reinforces academic standards, not teaching methods. The second part is assessment requirements. And it confirms, assessments confirm that the learner in home education is being assessed, that they're meeting standards. And the evidence, and this is important, and this comes back to a question that you asked earlier, the challenges that we are experiencing. And that is, parents don't keep evidence of the child's teaching and learning. Parents want to teach only 2 or 3 subjects and then expect the child to return to mainstream school at an age-appropriate grade. Parents are doing their own assessments, and they've got a grade 5 child and they're using grade 4 assessments to assess the child. That's not going to help the child in any way. Parents are afraid to assess children because they seem to think that if the child doesn't perform well, it's a poor reflection on parents. But the truth of the matter is, assessments is helpful in determining and identifying gaps and barriers to education. And this circular confirms, that what it tries to outline the evidence that parents can keep: portfolios, projects, tests, exams, practical work, to allow the child to be able to progress. It recognizes flexibility of different assessment instruments, assessment methods, and it also speaks. The third thing is about the role of the competent assessor, because that is what is very important. The competent assessor and who that person is. I mean, there are people out there who will charge you 4,000 rand for a competency report, and at the end of the day, all you're getting is a statement of results. That statement of results that tells you the child got 80% in math, 50% in English. It's not a competency report. It's just a statement of results. A competency report should be a report that tells you what the child is able to do, what the child is capable of doing, what competencies or what skills the child has acquired in that period of time. I hand over to Iselle. Thank you so much, Miriam, for having me. Always a pleasure to be on Salam Media.
Thank you, Neeresh. You go well. And you always, as I say, you're the homeschooling educational guru for me. And thank you for coming. I'm sure we'll get you on in future programs as well. But I think you've framed it very well, and you've given homeschooling parents pertinent advice. I'll concluding remarks by you, Iselle.
I completely agree with Neeresh, and I think what you said is extremely important. Is the Department of Education is not there to restrict parents; they are there to help. If you reach out and you tell them, "Please help," if you reach out to Neeresh and I, we will help. We are not there to tell you, "Listen, no, you're doing it completely wrong," or anything like that. The homeschooling community has to work together, and we work together with the Department of Education. And if you explain, if you give evidence to what you are doing and it is viable and fair and reliable, they will always work with you, as will I, Neeresh and I. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks so much. I think this gives a lot of people a lot of comfort in terms of homeschooling sector. And we wish you well. It's the beginning of the year. It's early days. So hopefully parents can get in contact with reliable, qualified assessors and take it from there. And as you say, you in control. If you're not happy, look elsewhere in the interest of your child. So thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated here on Salam Media, and good luck.
Thank you, Miriam. All the best for the rest of Ramadan to you and the listeners as well.
Thanks so much, Shukran. And with that, we're going to wrap up, and then we're going to continue with our focus on education, and we're going to be focusing on reading and literacy levels all after the break.